order and welcome everyone. Thank you for your attendance. I'd like to first ask that you would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Ms. Scott, if you will certify quorum for.
Yes, ma'am. Town of Ashland, Mr. Hodges.
Present. Here.
Charles City County, yes, thank you. Charles City County, Mr. Atkins, Mr. Patterson.
Present.
Chesterfield County, Mr. Carroll,
I'm here.
Mr. Holland, Ms. Schneider,
Here.
Dr. Miller. Goochland County, Mr. Lyle,
Present.
Mr. Vaughters. Hanover County, Mr. Davis, Ms. Pritchard. Here. Henrico County, Mr. Cooper, Vice Chair Rogish.
Here.
Mr. Schmidt. Newkirk County, Mr. Moyer,
Here.
Ms. Stewart. Powhatan County, Mr. Kinney, Ms. Morissette, Mr. McClung, Mr. Powers. City of Richmond, Mr. Breton,
Present.
Chair Newbill,
Here.
PTAC, I'm sorry, Capital Region Airport Commission, Mr. Rutledge. GRTC, Ms. Torres. Here. Ms. Adams. RMTA, Ms. Dean.
Here.
VDOT, Mr. Totten,
Here.
Mr. Riblett.
Here.
CTAC, Mr. Bunn. Virginia Department of Aviation, Mr. Harrington.
Present.
Department of Rail and Public Transportation, Ms. Dubinsky. Mr. Hudson,
Here.
thank you. FTA, Mr. Koenig. Federal Highway Administration, Mr. Ofori. Mr. Ruffin. Ride Finders, Ms. Ruffin. Here. And Mr. O'Keefe. That concludes the roll call for attendance. We do have a quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Members, we have a request for remote participation by Mr. Hodges. I will need a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
We knew what you want. We wanted, yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. If we would take a look at the agenda, and I'd like to entertain any consideration for amendments to the meeting agenda.
Madam Chair, when I would ask to remove something from consent, or would that come later? I'm here, I see a head shake. I don't
Yes.
know if that's yes and later.
I believe that's, Mr. Greg, that would be now.
Yes.
Yes. And so, Mr. Lyle, you are asking for an agenda amendment relative to item 8. Is that correct? Under 4,
Yes, it is.
and that would be moved from consent to regular?
Is
Well,
that where it goes?
well, I'm
I'm
saying
going to
for us, it
defer
would be
to
regular.
council on that.
Yes, the C2.
Yes.
Okay,
Madam Chair,
yes,
what are we moving and where are we moving?
this
it to?
is item 4H.
Yes, ma'am.
And it is being recommended that we would move it to C2.
No, you need a second. Second, madam.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, any other considerations for agenda amendments? Seeing none. Let's proceed to public comment period. Do we have persons present desirous of providing public comment? Seeing none, do we have anyone present virtually desirous of providing public comment? Scott? Okay, thank you. Then let's proceed to the consent agenda. And
Madam Chair, I move for approval of the amended consent agenda.
Okay,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, then let's proceed to the items thereof.
Madam Chair, may I ask for clarification for the record? Mr. Davis, was your intended motion to approve items A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and I of the consent
Yes,
agenda?
that is correct.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. B1 now?
Yes, please.
Ready?
There we
Mr.
go.
Cushing.
Hey, good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. This first item that I bring to you is one of two items related to project funding for this cycle. As you'll recall, back in the fall, this board took action to move to an every other year cycle for new projects. So this year, we were only looking at existing projects that needed additional funding. And so the first one we're bringing you is a request from Ride Finders. For a little bit of context, this table summarizes sort of the available funding that we have to use for these requests and what we're looking at. You can see there's a slight change across the board. So we saw a 7 to 10% decrease in each of the programs based on sort of federal recalculations and sort of the project schedules and where things have been delivered across the Commonwealth. So we had a slight decline, but overall it was about 7% decrease. So we had about 25 million in the STBG program, 7.9 in CMAC, and the 4.7 in carbon money that we were looking to use. And so this brings us to the request from Ride Finders. We're taking this one a little bit differently because Ride Finders is a program. It's different from our construction projects, but this request is for $2 million. So as many of you already know, Ride Finders receives $500,000 a year from this board to support the general work to get people out of single occupancy vehicles. Primarily, their focus is on carpool, vanpool initiatives. What this $2 million would do would allow a one-time increase to the program to really focus on transit. So a lot of the transit work that Ride Finders was doing has sort of faded due to COVID, due to the fact that there's no fares and a lot of the work was selling passes. This is now a revamped effort to focus on transit and getting more people onto the bus, getting them out of single occupancy vehicles. And as you can see on here, the recommendation from your TAC was a full award, so full $2 million. A little bit of an overview. The goal of this project is a regional program to reduce single occupancy commuter trips and promote transit, both fixed route and micro transit options, as viable travel options for reducing congestion and improving air quality. So this is in line with the existing Ride Finders program of improving congestion and air quality. It's just allowing a deeper dive and focus on transit. And so what are some of the expected impacts from this program? The main goal is trying to sustain and grow the shift that we've seen. So there's about 1.6 million trips in addition to what we had before fare free that we've seen through this expansion. So this is trying to continue that momentum, continue that shift toward transit. Actively promoting transit as an environmentally friendly alternative. And then also just increasing ridership through surveys so we can monitor how things are going, tracking KPIs, emissions, ridership, basically making this a data-driven program so that we can see where we were, where we've come, and whether this funding is being successful in helping us to increase those numbers overall. A couple other things, there's a lot of extra data in here, so quarterly ridership data with GRTC and Ride Finders working together on that, conducting annual GRTC survey, and then also supporting transit rider surveys to measure that success on people. Were people driving before? Were they walking before? How were they getting around before they switched to the bus? And so all around this program just builds again on the existing Ride Finders program and just adds the transit component as a focus for the near term. And this is a one-time request. And so the requested action from the policy board today is to approve a $2 million award to Ride Finders as recommended by TAC. There's a draft resolution in your agenda packets on page 66, which goes through that. But basically it would approve this $2 million amount and direct staff to work on including that into the updated 6-year program. So with that, I'm happy to answer questions. And if it gets too detailed, I'm happy to defer to GRTC and Ride Finders.
Are there any questions, Schneider?
So this is basically initiative driven, it's not actual rides, it's to push people to use the transportations.
Correct. It's an incentive program to try and promote it.
Right, okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Are
Yes,
there any
Mr.
goals?
Moyer.
I'm sorry?
Any goals?
So we do have goals and objectives. There's, in your agenda packets, there's a more detailed version of what I just laid out of what the goals were for the objectives. But this is the main thing is we're measuring the two KPIs, which is emissions and ridership on the bus. And so that's tracking that over the 3-year period, measuring annually to see how we're doing, if we're moving the needle in the right direction. And then again, this is a once-off effort, so this isn't intended to be a continuous program. It's just to try and keep that momentum going and see what works.
Any other questions?
Just the page before the resolution, the deliverables.
Okay. Seeing none, I'd like to call the question.
So moved.
Second.
Do we,
Oh,
Need
I'm
to
sorry,
do it.
I do. Yes, we do have
Roll
there's a
call.
roll call vote, I'm sorry. Mr. Hodges,
aye,
Mr. Patterson,
Aye.
Mr. Carroll,
Aye.
Ms. Schneider,
Aye.
Mr. Lyle,
Yay.
Mr. Davis,
Aye.
Vice Chair Rokish,
Aye.
Mr. Moyer,
Aye.
Mr. Breton,
Aye.
Chair Newbill,
aye,
Ms. Torres,
Aye.
Ms. Dean,
Aye.
Mr. Totten.
Aye.
That motion carries.
thank you. Let's move on, Mr. Bushing, to the next item.
Thank you again, Madam Chair. Second as this pulls up, but the second set is a continuation of what we were just looking at. So this is existing project requests for construction projects. So while Ride Finders was a program, these are all the projects that are actually going to construction, something's going to get built. Same baseline numbers that we're working with here. So nothing's changed between the two requests. And the TAC reviewed this, so just to put it into context, in January, we held an application window. We had 8 projects that requested funding. And TAC reviewed these at 2 separate meetings to discuss and kind of review the merits and also taking into context the reduction in funding that we were seeing. And through that process, TAC has made a recommendation to fund 4 of the requests, focusing on projects that are getting ready to start construction. So basically the projects where we have really locked in the number, we know what we're gonna need, and we need to just put money on to get these projects done. We would gone ahead and put those as recommended for funding. The projects that are still earlier in the development pipeline, maybe they're still working through engineering or acquiring right of way, have a little bit of extra time where we can see where the final numbers are gonna land, and there's a little bit more time for this board to put additional funding as needed down the road. And so I'm just gonna briefly walk through the 4 projects that were recommended for funding. And all the details are in your agenda packets as well. The first is in Chesterfield County, 113843. This is a component of the Fall Line Trail. This project has seen a 57% cost increase from the previous estimate. And the request was for 32% additional funding, or $547,000 from this board. The recommendation from TAC was to fully fund this request. Again, this is a segment of the Fall Line. It will be advertised and constructed with 2 adjoining sections, so it makes sense to get it all together and get this big piece of the Fall Line out of the way. The second project on here is Jenk Road in the city of Richmond. This is one that we've all seen several times before. This is a legacy project that we are trying to get completed, get it across the finish line. The request was for $6 million, which is a 36% cost increase to the TPO. But that was with a 63% increase overall in the cost. So the city is actually picking up the majority of the increase and asking for support to cover some of that. As many of you know, this project dates back to 1997. It's gone through lots of iterations. So the key here is getting it ready and into a position where we can award the contract and get it constructed and get this one off our books. And so this one was also recommended for funding. One thing that we did put on here was that staff recommended a condition that no additional MPO money be put onto this project. That basically this is it, we're at construction, we're advertising, let's get it done. The third project on here, 104281, this is in the city as well, Deepwater Terminal. The request was for $2 million and that was a 32% cost increase to the TPO. But the overall cost estimate went up by 15%. And so the recommendation from the TAC was a partial award, basically matching our current share of the project and letting the city cover the balance through other funding mechanisms. And then the final project on here is another Chesterfield County project. This is a bike ped improvement, and it has seen a very modest cost increase of 5%, with an 8% increase in the request. So there is still some local money on this because the county stepped up last round and covered some of the gap that was there. But this would help to fill some of that deficit on a project that is otherwise fully funded by the TPO. And so those are the 4 projects that are recommended for funding. As I mentioned, there were 4 additional ones that are earlier in the process, but TAC recommended that we wait on those and we can revisit them in another year as needed. And so the requested action today is for the policy board to approve the 4 projects and the additional amounts as recommended by TAC. There's a draft resolution of approval on page 83 of the agenda packet. And again, this resolution essentially directs staff to incorporate these projects into the funding program and work with VDOT to develop that funding plan. So with that, I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Thank you, Mr. Bushing. Are there any questions at this time? Yes.
So, Mr. Bush, if you go back to project 3, see the first one? 4. Okay, so I understand, I get the math on the recommended parcel. Is the city able to, are they able to take that parcel and then make up the diff on that? Did they say they were, if they would do that?
There was agreement at TAC from everyone to move that forward with that partial award, so.
Yes.
You get, okay. So that means yes. The city can do it.
Yes.
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 Road
Yes.
specifically?
Deepwater, yeah.
Deep water.
Yes. The,
Miss
yes, this
Clark,
is-
would you please?
Sorry. Good morning. Tyrone Moore Clark here, TAC Chair for the RRTPO. And yes, the TAC had a extensive conversation about this. We also had our project team on there, Lamont Benjamin, talking through the project. And this is just really helpful for the city. And so we did find that asking for this amount would allow us to close that gap with available funds. So we do have those. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Clark. Other questions?
One question, ma'am, just
Yes.
not
Mr.
on turn
Davis.
helps completely close the gap and then the project will be funded. So with this parcel, the difference will be made up in other areas purportedly by the city, but the project will still be a go with this parcel.
Yes,
Yes. That's
Yes.
on it. Thank you, Mayor.
Just wanted to make sure you can do it.
thank you.
Appreciate that.
Thank you. Yes, we appreciate that support. Any other questions? Seeing none, might I have a motion?
So
Motion
moved.
approved.
Okay.
You got it for
Okay.
it. You got it for it.
Do we want to do a roll call here, Ms. Saunders?
Yeah.
Mr. Hodges,
Aye.
Mr. Patterson,
Aye.
Mr. Carroll,
Yes.
Ms. Schneider,
Aye.
Mr. Lyle,
Yay.
Mr. Davis,
Aye.
Vice Chair Rokish,
Aye.
Mr. Moyer,
Aye.
Mr. Breton,
Aye.
Chair Newbill,
Aye.
Ms. Torres. Aye. Ms. Dean. Aye. Mr. Todd.
Aye.
That motion carries.
Okay, so Vice Chair Rogish will depart now, but I want to have you acknowledge the fact that when we return to our meetings, he will be our new chair. We just
Oh,
want to
yeah.
say thank you. We have the rotation and so it'll be Mr. Rogish as chair and should be Mr. I'm looking for, yeah, okay, Mr. Hodges as vice chair. Yes, okay, and that will be our August meeting. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next item. Didn't want him to get away before the end.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next item is our annual review of the upcoming fiscal year's Unified Planning Work Program. There's a cover memo describing the overview of the project and the process for development of this action item for you this morning, starting on page 84 of your packet. This is a topic that we've had on the agenda for discussion purposes in previous meetings, so I'll just hit a couple of highlights for you. The focus of this year's work program has 4 primary objectives. first and foremost, positioning the MPO to achieve a successful 2025 federal certification. That is a quadrennial review, which happens every 4 years in partnership with Federal Highway Administration, Federal Transit Administration, our partners at DRPT and VDOT. And that certification is scheduled to occur later this fall. That process and preparation and review for that process will be a major focus for our staff in the coming fiscal year. In addition to that, we've got this convergence of our core planning projects happening in this year. And so we'll be focusing on, as you know, the completion of the update of our long-range transportation plan, as well as continuing to do our air quality planning in coordination with the Tri-Cities MPO and administration of the Transportation Improvement Program. A big topic of discussion for the policy board and for the TAC over the last several months has been around safety. And you probably recall, I believe it was at the February meeting, the policy board adopted our transportation safety performance measures, which actually departed from the natural growth that was projected for the state. And we said that we want to take a hard line to be able to actually stem the growth of tragic fatalities and severe collisions that occur in our region. And so a large part of the work program this year emphasizes what role the MPO planning staff can play in supporting localities in outreach and education to improve safety-related behavior. Working closely with the TAC to be able to advise how we can build a regional Vision Zero campaign and leverage the activities that are already happening locally in many of your communities and build that awareness collectively across the region. In addition to that, obviously, safety has been a priority in how we think about and evaluate projects, but this is really another opportunity to think about how we can affect behavior in our roadways and the ways that we can truly envision moving to that fourth point, our multimodal future. This region is multimodal, and so realizing that there are inherent conflicts with those modes at certain places that produce safety challenges. So really, how do we think about those two things together? I do want to note that the Unified Planning Work Program has a little bit of a new item that probably wasn't discussed at previous policy board meetings. There's a third funding source referenced in the tables that you see starting on page 42. And we actually have an updated handout that hopefully everyone was able to get. That is a revised set of figures of program funds by source and as assigned by activity. But the memo references that the Unified Planning Work Program is supported by two primary funding sources. That is still true. The public law funding from Federal Highway Administration is an 80% grant, which is matched 10% with the state and 10% by local member dues that come to the commission. And then we have our Section 5303 money, which is our transit planning money. Similarly, it's awarded at 80%, and then the state matches at 10%, and we pick up the remaining 10%. We also, in the Unified Planning Work Program, are anticipating a $125,000 award, additional funds from DRPT through their merit program. We've included it in this budget, even though it goes for formal approval by the CTB on June 25th, if I'm not mistaken. And that's because it's part of the package that staff has recommended award. That merit grant is specifically to provide partnership support to our transit providers in the region to build a long-term sustainability plan to maintain zero fare or fare-free transit service for our riders across the region and with our partner providers. I'll take a breath there and just pause to see if there are any questions or if you'd like me to go into any greater detail with regard to the substance of the work program for next year. Yes.
Go to that last part you talked about, the partnership with our transit partners.
Yeah, so we have a handful of transit providers that provide transit service in the region. GRTC, I know everyone's familiar with, but we also have partnerships with Bay Transit, serving the eastern part of the region. There's Hanover Dash, there's Chesterfield Pro. So there's providers in the mix that serve the outer areas that aren't served by GRTC. And so the application was submitted to DRPT to support building a long-term sustainability plan to ensure that riders who access those services have access to the transit opportunities at zero fare.
Any other questions or comments?
If the policy board is prepared to take action on the requested action to approve the Unified Planning Work Program, we will, following approval, submit to our state and federal partners, where they will review and approve, and it will become effective July 1 with the contract execution of our funding agreements.
Do I have a motion to move forward with this?
So moved.
Mr. Lyle. Second. Thank you, Mr. Moyer. We have a roll call?
You gonna have enough now?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Hodges,
Aye.
They just left. Are you gonna have enough? Okay.
I think we will. See.
Okay.
We'll see. But I'll double check. Thank you.
I'm sorry, did someone else leave other than?
Yes, there was.
Faye
Faye.
Pritchard.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Mr. Hodges,
Aye.
Mr. Patterson,
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Ms. Schneider,
Aye.
Mr. Lyle,
Yay.
Mr. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Moyer,
Aye.
Mr. Breton,
Aye.
Chair Newbill,
Aye.
Ms. Torres,
Aye.
Ms. Dean, and Mr. Todd.
Aye.
That motion carries.
Thank you, Scott. The next item is the item that was moved from consent to regular. And that's Community Transportation Advisory Committee Member Honorarium Pilot Policy.
Yes, I will. And I'll also invite any members who were participating in this process if they'd like to give comment. Earlier this year, the Equity Work Group was activated with membership from both the CTAC and the Commission's Public Outreach and Engagement Committee to explore the benefits and potential of incorporating a compensatory program for public engagement. We talked through a number of different opportunities, initiatives. Ken Lance on our team did a really great job of doing a literature review and a scan of how other MPOs are supporting through a compensatory or a stipend program participation in the planning process. And through a couple of months of exploration and discussion and discovery, the CTAC voted earlier this spring to recommend a draft policy that would serve as a pilot for initiating a stipend program for members of the CTAC. The idea being that engagement in the CTAC meetings is a little hit or miss, admittedly. I'll just note as an aside, the executive committee did have a discussion this morning about engaging the CTAC and discussing what role they would like to see themselves play in the MPO planning process. And so we'll be kicking that off later this summer. But the thought was that a member honorarium or stipend program might be a way to indicate to members of the CTAC that their role in this process is important and valued, and to incentivize attendance at meetings by providing a stipend based on their attendance. We evaluated the membership and the structure of the CTAC and identified that the maximum cost of offering a $50 stipend for meetings scheduled over the course of the year would be at $12,000. We then reviewed recent attendance levels over the past year to year and a half and determined that most likely the cost, while maximum at $12,000, is more likely to be right under $5,000 in fiscal year 2026. Again, assuming the pilot approach with a $50 per meeting stipend paid to attendees at the meeting. Last thing I'll note before any questions or comments, in the consent agenda item actions, you did approve item I, which is an attendance policy, which really supports staff in being able to check in with members of the CTAC to determine if lacking attendance is due to an incidental reason or maybe a more systemic reason that we need to explore identifying a replacement. And so the idea was that if the compensation or stipend policy is a carrot, the attendance policy is the mechanism to ensure that everyone understands the expectations that being a part of the committee is to attend the meetings. Ms. Schneider, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I know you served on this committee, so.
Yeah. I definitely think that it's we chose this one as the pilot program just because it is mostly it's the citizens that are on this on that committee, and a lot of them are voluntarily, you know, coming to these things, and it's to give us a better understanding of what and how we can improve transportation and accessible transportation. And so some of these people don't necessarily have transportation to get here. And so are we asking them to, you know, spend, so I just feel that it's a good way of honoring their time and their investment in the process of trying to improve our regional transportation system. And if we can improve attendance, that works as a win-win for all of us, because then we get more information and can understand better what we need to do to improve the system. So for me, I think it's a great opportunity for us to try this out with the citizen, with the CTAC. I understand that we do have some citizens here on this board, and maybe if it works out, we could, you know, implement it there also. This is again, just a pilot program. And so I think that it's a great opportunity for us to see where we can improve our data points and information. So.
Thank you, Ms. Shinari.
Yep.
And
did you have anything to add?
Oh,
I think you've covered, thank you.
questions, comments?
Madam Chair,
Yes,
since
Mr.
I
Lau.
requested that we pull this out,
Mhm.
I guess I'm both in an informational seeking mode, but also a philosophical one. And let me address the informational. If these volunteers are not being compensated for mileage or use of their personal vehicles, I certainly would like to see them compensated for true out of pocket. I'm not looking for these citizens to make a financial contribution. But philosophically now, I do believe that our communities work best when people volunteer probably the most precious resource they have, and that's their time. And I don't want to necessarily put a financial burden on someone because they're having to pay to volunteer. But I just philosophically, I'm uncomfortable that we're now starting to create literally a payroll scenario where if you show up, we're going to pay you. And I'm thinking administratively, I mean, how much time are we going to spend processing honorariums? I mean, nothing is going to just magically occur. I don't know, and I'm looking at the numbers, that $12,000 is a full year. I assume that the 46 or 4,800 is for a half a year, or is that for a full fiscal year also?
Right there, the $12,000 would essentially be the budget.
Yes.
But we did an analysis of what historic attendance has actually been. So if attendance remained level, the 4,500, 4,800 would be kind of the floor. So the idea would be that if we're paying more than 4,800, we will have seen.
Understand. And so if the stipend honorarium is to is to encourage participation, it sounds like we're not anticipating that's going to work, because we're going to stay right at the 4,800. So I was not part of the CTAC committee discussions, but I'd like to see us encourage volunteerism. And I'll leave it at that.
Could I,
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Madam
Mr.
Chair,
Lau.
could I?
Yes, Ms. Shinari.
So also on the CTAC, we have a lot of nonprofits that don't have a lot of staff.
Mr. Reed.
These dollars could go towards their programming to increase their, I mean, like, say, Ride Finders, they have, or not Ride Finders, I'm sorry, RVA, Rapid Transit. They have two people. So if, you know, they get the dollars for the year, it can go a long way towards what they do in their system. And if people don't want to take the dollars, they can refuse it. They don't have to take it. So I just don't understand. I think I get what you're saying, but I think that there are definitely people that we would like to hear from that we are not hearing from, I think, because there are some things that are keeping them from coming to the meetings, obviously. So.
Thank you. We have someone online who's desirous of making comment.
Yes, what, a CTAC member?
Mr.
Yeah, this is Michael Weeby. I'm on the CTAC. Yeah, I think this is a great program or a great, pilot. And I think it'll encourage diversity in the program as well, of diversity of views. So, I mean, in my case, I would not be able to accept the honorarium, but I know that if if other people, there could be people. Hopefully, there are people who are that it would help, to get that $50 to attend a meeting. You might have people who don't have, your bus ridership typically is not your highest paid people. So, I think that's or people who don't have cars, maybe that helps them get there. Yeah, it might increase diversity on the CTAC, and that would be a good thing.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Did we actually poll the people who are on CTAC to see what their interest was overall? Because we appoint those members from our boards. And I know, as an example, what I was talking about, one of my members can't drive. He has to get driven here because he lives way out in Chesterfield County, and someone else has to drive. So I get it, but I'm just curious if the other members of the CTAC had an opportunity to weigh in.
I don't know the answer.
But this recommendation comes from the CTAC, so those that have been participating in the last 2 meetings have voiced their opinions, and the vote prevailed to move this recommendation forward.
Okay.
I think it'd be appropriate to, I'm sorry, to make sure they knew it was a optional
Yes.
honorarium.
Yeah.
Versus this is what you're gonna get automatically. If you want it, you can have it. If not, that's fine.
Yes, and I do want to make a note that in the policy, I hope it clearly articulates, we worked to make sure that this was clear, that if a member of the CTAC is appointed by virtue of their paid position, they would be ineligible to receive. So if you're attending the CTAC meetings because of the job that you have that's earning compensation, you would be exempt from the receipt of this. But in the case of these citizen appointees who truly are participating because they care about the community, this stipend was intended to honor and respect the expertise that they're bringing. And in the case that Mr. Carroll is talking about, if they are incurring expenses, this could go to help offset those.
I just want.
I would imagine that a lot of these people are traveling for distance.
Yep.
To get there.
Mr.
Okay,
Hathaway.
wait, I want to get everybody in here. Okay,
Actually,
let me, Mr. Carroll, were you done?
I'm done.
Okay, Mr. Brett.
Given that we're calling it a pilot, have we defined a time range or a success criteria, or that would be that we would come to decide that it would be a successful pilot?
The pilot term is 1 fiscal year, so July to June of fiscal 2026. And Mr. Lance, correct me if I'm wrong, but the CTAC did settle on a set of evaluation measures to be able to determine, and some of those are quantitative. Attendance is one of them, and others are qualitative as to, does this, from the comment that Mr. Weeb made earlier, does this incentivize some of the vacant seats getting filled so that we can build out the remainder of the membership? Am I getting that right, Ken?
Correct.
Okay. Other voices?
Weeby has his hand raised again.
Okay,
I
anyone
was
else?
just saying that it's not I don't think we need to spend a lot of time talking about it. It's a pilot program, and let's try it out and see what's going on. If the CTAC wants it, let's give it to the CTAC.
Thank you, Mr. Wavy. Ms. Schneider.
I just wanted, so like Mr. Hathaway from New Kent, I mean, that's a long way to drive every time you come into, so.
for him than you.
Yeah,
We're only 13 miles away.
so.
I'm just simply saying that it is a commitment to drive here, and so, yeah.
So I'd like to just comment. I'd like to thank CTAC for making this recommendation. I think that when we talk about citizen involvement, We are bringing them because they have voice that we're wanting to hear and include in our deliberations. And an honorarium honors that expertise. That's why they're coming there. That's why they're participating. And so it also mitigates barriers. So whether someone has to be driven in or whatever, but it also honors what they bring. It has value to our processes and informs it. So I want to thank you all for bringing this forward as a recommendation for pilot. We have other entities that have honorariums attached to them as well. And so this is not a novel kind of idea, but even if we didn't, this is the kind of effort that I want us to consider as we engage the community, as we engage citizens who are volunteering. And again, not just mitigating barriers, but honoring the voice and the recommendations that they bring to our deliberations. So,
Madam Chair.
yes.
I opened my comments saying I was in an information seeking mode.
Sure.
And I certainly appreciate the comments that have been shared because we are a little provincial. I'm Goochland. We're Goochland. And so I very much appreciate that the perspective we have and this way we approach things in Goochland are different in various areas. So the information has been helpful. I will be supporting this based on my colleagues giving me information that I was not otherwise aware of. So thank you very much for, I don't want to say humoring me, but helping me.
Well, it's
get information.
beneficial to hear all of the sides so that we're making an informed decision and you know what the basis is. I mean, we always want to do that.
And it is a 1-year pilot and we're going to measure it. And we're going to see, did we get results or did we just invest $4,800 in research? And I'm a research guy, so I like research.
I like research as well, but authentic community engagement and voice is critical to our processes as well and has a value. So not to kind of stop. Thank you. I would like to move that we approve this recommendation.
Second.
Thank you. Do we need a roll call or roll call?
Mr. Hodges,
Aye.
Mr. Patterson,
Aye.
Mr. Carroll, Ms. Schneider,
Aye.
Mr. Lyle,
Yay.
Mr. Moyer,
Aye.
Mr. Breton,
Aye.
Chair Newbill,
Aye.
Ms. Torres. Aye. Ms. Dean,
Aye.
Mr. Todd.
Aye.
That motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. We will move on now. I think we're a community partner agency.
I do know,
We have
yes.
something
No,
before.
that's, I know Ms. Clark is here and.
Yes.
here to give a TAC report,
Yes,
and Mr. Vine is not,
Okay.
he is at work.
got you. Ms. Clark. Thank you. Joining us. Thank you for your work. Good job.
Good morning again, everyone. Madam Chair, Diana Clark here, Technical Advisory Committee Chair. The TAC held its last meeting on Tuesday, May the 13th, 2025. I want to thank this board for their approval of a number of the TAC items. My Tennessee came out. A number of TAC items that you approved earlier. Two key items discussed during our TAC meeting was one, the Bike TED RBA plan update. TAC reviewed and recommended for approval the update of the Bike PED plan. This plan heavily relied on local jurisdictional input and designates the spurs off of the fall line designates the spurs that will come off of the fall line and Capitol Trail spines. This is important to everyone because this makes these different spurs eligible for future regional funding. So that's very important to be able to get those bike and ped pedestrian projects that are happening in our localities into a regional plan to allow for regional dollars to be accessed. Lastly, the TAC talked about the regional funding framework review. This entailed wrapping up the review of the regional funding framework to guide our TAP and RSTP CMAQ decision next fiscal year. So we're very excited to have updated key framework and pieces of that plan in order to really have a good impact on the projects that come out of those application processes. So we're looking forward to seeing how safety, and we've put in other things about project readiness in order to allow for good projects to come out of the region and to get built. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Clark. With that, we will move on to agency updates and Mr. Totten, VDOT.
Me? First and last, well, good morning, thank you.
Good morning.
Just a couple of items for the group's note. If any of you happened to catch the CTB meeting last week, there was a final draft scenario for consensus scenario put forward. The projects that were in for the Richmond district remained. There were 2 projects that were added for funding. One being a application 111761, which is a project in Powhatan County at Route 60 and Route 13, an RCUT project, and some additional funding being applied to the exit 211 I-64 interchange improvement project in New Kent County. That proposed consensus scenario goes in front of the board for final adoption as part of the round 6 and the 6-year plan development next month. So you are encouraged to stay tuned for that final adoption at their June meeting. Do want to note with their June meeting, just please pay attention. It is in Richmond, and depending upon the agenda length, sometimes the agenda goes from being 2 days to 1 day. So please just stay tuned for that. But we'll know what projects will remain in the 6-year plan after that meeting. A couple other items of note. Design build 1 for the Fall Line Trail, which is the northern end from Mr. Hodges' neighborhood down to the Henrico County line. We are nearing the end of construction for that phase. We hope to have that active in the next few months. That would be an early finish. Design build 2, we're in the final stages of going through award. We expect to award that potentially at next month's CTB meeting. We look forward to seeing that project moving forward. That's the project at the southern end of the Richmond district, beginning in the city of Petersburg and working its way north through Colonial Heights and Chesterfield County up to about Route 10, for lack of a better word. We continue to work our way through the NEPA process for the short pump improvement plans, the Powhite Parkway Phase 2. And last item of note, we are continuing to work our way through I-64 and the Gap down in Mr. Moyer's neighborhood. Segments A and C, that's the western end and the eastern end, are actively under construction. Segment B is a few months behind, but we do expect to begin work a little more assertively here in the next few months. So please stay tuned for that. When it's all under construction, as mentioned before, that's a 29-mile work zone. Most importantly, I do want to make you aware that we will have New Kent has engaged with us, and they will be undertaking an active photo enforced speed limit enforcement in the next probably month or 2. We will see that go active. I don't have a fixed start date yet, but we're in the final stages for them. So what that means is when the county sheriff's office decides to deploy their photo enforcement, there will be increased fines for that and kind of an automatic process. So stay tuned for that. That is the first of its kind in the Richmond district.
And where will that be?
That'll be on I-64 in New Kent County. So as I've mentioned before, we've seen vehicular crashes increase dramatically since that became an active work zone. We have seen vehicle speeds go up dramatically. Obviously, if you drive there, I grew up in Pennsylvania. It's a little like driving the Pennsylvania Turnpike with barrier service on both sides. I'm convinced that drivers think that that's an improvement based on the number of crashes anyway and the speeds. So we're hopeful that undertaking this effort with New Kent, that it will begin to slow down some of those vehicular speeds and lead to a better situation. I do want to note that Virginia State Police is working their way through their procurement process under the Code of Virginia that will allow them to assume that responsibility when they're their procurement is done, so
Okay.
go ahead.
I assume this is part of the legislation that was passed for school zones and construction zones,
So it's,
or,
yeah, it's a couple of years old, the legislation is, but yes, it's connected to that.
Okay.
And
Thank
the
you.
authority by code goes to the Virginia State Police. But they have had to work their way through some procurement challenges over the last couple of years. So we have actually worked with New Kent. They came to us. They'll be doing that under a land use permit on our roadway.
Okay.
So we've basically given them permission to go that. And they're working with Virginia State Police to
Got it.
make sure that everybody's happy. And at the end, we'll be able to hand right off from New Kent to Virginia State Police when they're ready to go.
thank you.
But that is the first of its kind, but certainly in the district, and I believe maybe the second one in the county. So stay tuned for that. Just be aware if you go out there, if the lights are flashing and you see that, just be aware that you might receive, there'll be a grace period, a break-in period, and but we're looking forward to seeing that go forward.
They're not cheap either.
A little bit to that is that, as in school zones, it's a $100 fine. That some of it goes to us, some of it goes to the provider, and it does not go on your record. So you much rather have a letter in the mail than get stopped by one of our deputies, because it'll be a lot more expensive. We've had, pretty much the normal has been pulled over at 80 and 60, but we've had the 130. Of course, we've had the one that ended in Henrico, not really good, and that went to 140 miles an hour, that pursuit. But as our sheriff says, until it's over, it's gonna get worse.
Yeah.
And he admits that to everybody. And two, the main reason for accidents are speed.
I'm correct.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
comment on the screen.
Oh, I'm going to, Mr. Where, I can't see him.
Maybe I believe.
Weeby, okay.
I just wanted to ask, is there a higher fine for a worse violation than that?
It would be if the deputy pulls you over, but not if you.
Flat rate?
Yeah, it's a flat rate.
Okay.
Good question.
All
That's
right,
unfortunate.
Mr. Carroll, yes.
We talked earlier about the long-term plan for safety
Mhm.
in the region, which is part of what we're gonna be working on in the future. Just as an example, one day, Chesterfield County Police set up enforcement on Chippenham, stopped over 200 cars. And over 200 citations.
One of them was a 15-year-old child that didn't even have a license.
Never license.
Going 70 or 78 miles an hour or something.
I was on Chippenham the other day. 2 cars came by me, they had to be going well over 100.
Yeah.
So,
Mr. Britton.
Actually, on the subject of safety across the region, across the state, a difficulty we're having in the city of Richmond is the funding for speed cameras are facing 2 challenges that actually need help from the state to get, which is in order for a ticket to be issued by a speed camera, it has to be reviewed by a sworn officer, which is a very expensive and difficult to find resource to make available for that. And the other difficulty is that the funding from the tickets does not go to fund the program, it goes to a state fund. So both of those are major hurdles.
No,
that's second. Am I
They
mistaken on that one?
changed it in legislation this past
They
year.
decided not to change it.
yes, that's correct.
That's the original way
Yeah,
it was,
okay.
that it goes to the jurisdiction. And the funding of the camp, the one thing that did not get brought up, did not get passed in that was to allow retired sworn officers to review that. That would have been great.
That would have been more
It-
cost effective way.
Yes, and that didn't go through, so hopefully next year we look at that again.
All right, so.
But those are challenges.
But that may be an opportunity in terms of collective effort
Mhm,
going over to the General
Yep.
Assembly
Yep.
from the regional bodies.
for sure.
So just to put it on our radar.
On the localities with the school zone cameras, many have put those in place across the district, and
Right.
over time, we'll see how effective they are.
Right.
I know Chesterfield's done.
Wait, gentlemen, 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 okay.
So we'll know probably in the next 12-24 months how effective those have been. If you go to Mr. Carroll's neighborhood in Chesterfield, those school zone cameras have been deployed And
Okay.
in a lot of places, New Kent has one or two out there, if I'm not mistaken, city's got a handful of them, I drove by
Right.
two of them coming here this
Me
morning.
too.
So I will know the effect of
My
this.
son
in
had it.
September.
Mr. Carroll, Mr. Breton, did you want to share something?
I just had a suggestion for Richmond, and that is that if you have officers that are retiring, hire them back part-time.
Mhm.
And then those part-time officers can retain their DCJS certification,
Mhm.
and they can actually be hired to actually do the camera review. We do that with a body worn camera. In Chesterfield County, we have 3 retired officers that are they're still law enforcement certified, work part-time, but do all the body camera review. So it's a way to, you know, when an officer gets older and can't actually necessarily be on the road, you can bring them back doing an administrative process like this, still maintain their certification, and they can help with that, and it's a lot less expensive than hiring a full-time officer to do it.
I know that we do have some have retired, some have hired some retirees. So I don't know how much savings that's been, but that is a cost associated that we all have in there. Okay, with that, I'd like to go to Mr. Hudson online, DRPT. For any updates.
Good morning and thank you. I have 2 quick updates. First of all is a reminder that our 5303 application deadline is approaching, and that is June 2nd. The second item I wanted to mention is DRPT has partnered with the National Training Institute to bring several courses to Virginia. These are in-person training courses on several topics related to transit. But also we are working with them to bring a course to the Richmond area focused on MPO planning and programming. We have distributed that information to NBO staff, and we encourage folks that are interested to please register. And that concludes my updates for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hudson. Ms. Torres, GRPC update?
Yes. First update I have is that we are currently planning for hopefully our first annual transit it's called Tap into Transit Day. And so this is kind of our inaugural launch of our TAP campaign, which is our fundraising effort to keep zero fare going. So if you guys could save the date, it's currently set for July 8th, and it will be at Main Street Station from 4:30 to 7:30. Looking for event sponsors as well as just a big push for the campaign once it actually goes live. And we will be celebrating not just the TAP inaugural launch, but we also are putting into service our 4 articulated vehicles. Like that's kind of a celebration of the region in terms of funding mechanisms, because 2 of those vehicles were smart scale efforts. And the other 2 were merit that has been matched with CBTA as well as the local jurisdictions to make happen. So we'll be doing ribbon cutting at that event, and the fact that we need 60-foot vehicles in the Richmond region for the Pulse is just shows success for transit in this area, and tied very heavily to just the ridership success related to our zero fare. We will be getting 8 more of those. They should be here by the end of the year. So those will be replacing all of the 40-foot vehicles on the Pulse. So they will now be 60-foot articulated. Hoping we can get a sponsor for those as well. And then just some numbers I also have for the link service, like I always ask that normally. Pull them up. So for our Azalea zone, looking at 2,500 for the month of, 3,500 for the month of April. Ashland at 2,500 for the month of April. 1,400 for Sandston, 665 for Cloverdale, and 154 for Powhatan. So addition to pushing the effort for marketing communications for the TAP effort, we will be jumping back into those link zones. Pushing you guys also to help us get outreach communications for all those zones so they can continue to grow in ridership. Like that.
Thank you. Good. RMTA, Ms. Delegate.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning. I think the last meeting I gave a little bit of a teaser about our modernization project where we're moving to all electronic tolling at the first phase of it. You will be seeing some movement if you're driving into the city on the Powhite. Soon you'll be seeing some activity. We are going to be putting a large scale gantry at the river. And with the targeted date of winter of 2025. And so just wanted to let you all know that was coming. We will be doing some road shows towards the middle to the end of the summer. So look forward to talking with all of you all in more detail about the project. The next item I have is that I currently serve as the first vice president of the International Bridges, Tunnels, and Turnpikes Association, which is the tolling association. And we are for the second year having our Global Safety Week. So I like to hear all the conversation about safety. We are seeing as everywhere an uptick in accidents, seeing an uptick in speed on our roadway. And so the Global Safety Week is really kind of a marketing campaign to focus on safety on the roadway. And so we'll be pushing out a lot of social media posts, as well as there's some webinars that I can send to Martha so she can push out so you all can participate if you would like to. That's all I have.
Maybe that would be great to forward to Martha or forwarding to us. Okay. I think CBTA, Mr. Parsons.
Good morning. Just a few quick updates beyond what was in the agenda packet. In early May, we celebrated the Fall Line Work Group, which was one of our ad hoc committees tasked with advancing the planning and implementation of the Fall Line. That has now moved to a point where that work group is not necessary anymore. That responsibility has shifted to the localities and VDOT to continue to advance the plans and procedures for the remaining sections of the Fall Line. So the final meeting of that work group was in early May at Sports Backers' new facilities right over by Bryant Park. So that was a nice celebration. I did want to provide an update on the upcoming CBTA meeting in June. As Mr. Totten mentioned, the Design Build 2 section of the Fall Line is close to advancing, and CBTA is still playing an active role in getting that project across the line. So that will be an agenda item at our June meeting. In addition, we will be holding election of officers for FY26 in June, so that those folks are ready to go for our first meeting in the next fiscal year. That's a brief update. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions?
Just something to add, Madam Chair.
Yes.
He didn't tell you, but in the next fiscal report that we get from the state on funds, we will go over $1 billion in funds collected by the CBTA since its inception.
Did you say over $1 billion?
Over $1 billion. Next report, we're at 22 million, I think, right now.
Great news.
Which depends on your perspective.
Well, yeah, I'm looking at it positively.
$500 million has been given back to the jurisdictions.
Right, that's
For their transport needs.
that's
Good too.
the angle I'm looking at.
So Madam Chair, the point of it is that we have had the opportunity now regionally to actually fund projects that have sat dormant for years.
Yes.
Because we didn't have funding to do it, couldn't get matching funding to do it. And it's really delivering regionally, all of us together for the communities, so.
Thank you. Thank you for all of your efforts on that body. Ms. Schickel.
Thank you. Just a couple of highlights from our upcoming commission meeting. We've got a couple of key agenda items on the docket for that meeting. Similar to what Mr. Parsons shared, we'll have election of officers. So New Kent and Charles City County are slated for assuming the rotation of chair and vice chair respectively. We'll also be looking at the meeting schedule for members who serve on both boards. Our staff have tried to take care to, when possible, present a meeting schedule for the TPO policy board, and the commission meetings are on off months, so that those of you that sit on both of those boards hopefully can have not as many meetings in a given month, but sometimes it's not logistically possible to do that at certain times of the year when we need to do things like audit and budget and those types of things. But where we can, we've tried to take care to be mindful of your schedules. In addition to that, we're also looking at how we can schedule and approach the joint annual meeting. So I know you adopted the schedule today with the December date. There might be some adjustments to that. Just again, sort of try to think about how to negotiate everyone's busy schedules and whatnot. So we'll have future conversations about that. As far as other items on the agenda for June 12th, the commission will be adopting the regional strategic vision. This is in accordance with the code section that says that planning district commissions will prepare a regional strategic plan and report annually on the implementation of that plan. We've been, I think, a year long, if not more, process to develop that vision statement, and it's been before the board a number of times. We shared it at the joint annual meeting in December of 2024 for actually all three bodies of the TPO, the CBTA, and the commission to contribute to. And it will become the sort of prevailing umbrella vision within which core plans, as we're calling it in the Plan RVA vocabulary, like the long range transportation plan, will nest under. So the idea is that we're rowing in the same direction as a region, and we're rowing in the same direction from a planning perspective when we talk about transportation, affordable housing, natural resources, environment, and economic development. And always leave one out. Hang on. What am I missed? Thank you. Hazard mitigation. Thank you so much. Eric's fresh on the content. And then finally, we'll be adopting our budget for this upcoming fiscal year, or presenting the budget for adoption for this upcoming fiscal year. So today's action on the Unified Planning Work Program is a significant feeder into the agency's budget and work program development. We slot the work program that the policy board adopts into the agency work program. A little note on some of the discussion that we've had of late, certainly at the commission and a little bit here with regard to the status of federal funding. We are presenting a balanced budget. In other words, projecting not really a surplus, but not a deficit. And so we base that on projections of funding that are largely committed through existing contracts. We've always been fairly conservative when we project our revenue and try not to put too much in the budget from a revenue projection perspective that is speculative. But given the climate, we were even more conservative this year. And so there are many grants that we anticipated would not be renewed that have been kind of in a traditional renewal cycle. And so from a forecasting perspective, if that worst case scenario, so to speak, from a funding perspective were to occur, we wouldn't really see the impacts of that in our operating budget until fiscal year 27. So just wanted to note that for everyone, and we'll be talking about that on an ongoing basis with the Finance Committee. But we had a great meeting with the Finance Committee last week and reviewed the budget, and they are recommending that to go forward to the commission with a recommendation for approval. So happy to be able to be in that position heading into this year without a ton of uncertainty. So.
Great news. Thank you. Just quickly, and I wanted to introduce Mr. Rogish as the incoming chair. Page 27, we have a rotation of leadership. And so just wanted to remind that the vice chair becomes the chair in our rotation, and then the next would be for vice would be Mr. Hodges. It's been a pleasure to serve as your chair for the last year. Look forward to our work together with more to come. And with that, our meeting stands